Следующее заседание является продолжением проекта Teen Power на Global Impact Conference.
This session is attended by the co-founders of Deal14.org, a freelance platform for employers and performers aged 14 to 18 years old. Anastasia, Terre, and Artiom Sici are experts on social protection issues.
Good day, I'm Anastasia, a 10th grade student of horror scholar and also part of startup Deal 14. And I have here with us specialist in social protection, Mr. Artiom Sici. Good day.
Hello, Anastasia.
So, Artiom, you work in social protection through labor law, and a lot of students and school children don't really know who they want to become in the future. So how did you realize it's your thing?
Well, before I came up with this idea, or before coming to this idea and choosing a profession, you've got to have some experience, and this is not easy. When I, for one, was thinking about various professions, I was thinking of several. Of course, law and finance were what I considered. And I was prompted to do that through reading books and talking to the people I know. When I read an exciting book by Theodore Dreiser, The Financier, one of the novels of the trilogy, I thought that it would be exciting to work in finance or law, and one goes with the other. And I sort of thought that that is the main area where I want to go into. I didn't know, though, if I would work in a particular industry. And then I started looking, and I was asking my parents, I was asking my father and mother about where best to go to study and what to major in. And talking about labor law, when time came to study labor law, I came across that professor who became my mentor, and he told me more about labor law and the importance of that, and that there are organizations working in that area that promote various standards, and that's how I came to like labor law. That's how I started learning labor law, and then I understood that I want to pursue that as a career. So that was meeting my professor, that was reading books, that was reading articles, that was talking to my parents, all of that. led me to choosing that as a major, but this may be an exception. There might be a situation when children may not follow that path. Some of the kids may not have the people around them who could give them advice in terms of where to major and what to study. And I guess it would be good to give children opportunity at 16, 17, that kind of age, an opportunity to get introduced to their future profession. And that's a big question and an important one. The system of education in our countries, I mean the CIS countries, is very different from the European system, because here at age 17 to 18, as early as that, Anastasia, we have to take a very important decision about what we want to become essentially for the rest of our lives, and that's a very difficult decision and a tough one. When an adolescent or a teenager or a young adult doesn't have enough information to make that decision, that could be a negative for their life. And I started by saying that there's a difference between our education and systems of education in other countries. To my knowledge, overseas, when students select a major, well, prior to that, they would do some general study. They would only major not in their first and second year. They would take a broad range of subjects such as IT and law and a variety of others, and only having tasted many things and talked to professors, they select a major, and then they would dive deeper into their subject of choice. So that is the important difference. Well, my experience, I sort of was lucky in coming across the right people, but I guess it would be good to change that approach in our parts of the world, where students and candidates come across this.
What you like most in what you do?
I work as an expert in social protection. In particular, I work on an international level. I now offer my consultancy services to different international non-governmental organizations, and currently I do an analysis and overview of social protection systems for Asian countries such as Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos. And this work of mine gives me a lot of reward. It's very rewarding for me. So, because it gives me an opportunity to really have an impact on the lives of people who live in those countries. Now, for example, I do a gap analysis in the social protection systems of various nations to develop some specific recommendations for governments who look at that area, and in that way the work that I do can have an impact on the national system, and you would appreciate that social protection systems are important to the government. Overall, there are countries where the level of poverty is high, so social protection can address that, and that is why I try by consulting governments to improve the social protection system. That makes me a happy worker in the area where I work. Of course, there are other factors that influence that. Apparently, that's the opportunity to talk to people from various cultures and countries. I had a chance of meeting different cultures. I used to work in Central Asia. At one point I worked in Russia. And before even thinking that I would work in this area, I had an opportunity to meet many countries, to meet excellent people from Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, in most of the CIS countries. And this communication with various people and with various cultures, of course, is what gives me pleasure and happiness. And last but not least, the opportunity to travel is a big positive. And then again, beyond my business agenda in any business trip, I of course always try to engage some entertaining activity in a particular country.
You travel the world, you work for Russia to Cambodia, but countries are so different, so how do you enter these new cultures and understand them and help them cope with the goals?
Understanding of the conditions in which you operate, the system in which I work, the organizations that I work with, promote different important values, such as non-discrimination, respect to human rights, respect to various cultures. That is the foundation. Without that, it would have been very difficult for international organizations to work with other organizations, or other people for that matter, who represent a very different nation or a very different culture. And of course, that is an important prerequisite that each international professional should observe. But that was on the professional side. On the personal side, of course, these professional relationships, as I said, I find very rewarding. I meet different people. I'm curious about how they view the world and why social security develops in this way rather than another. As I said, social security matters a lot, but what matters for social security is sociology, the thinking of a certain mass or group of people. For example, in one culture that is permeated by the Islamic religion, there may be another culture that is a majority Christian, that influence the social security system. And that curiosity that I have to exercise in my job is important to build a good relationship with my partners, with my colleagues whom I meet in the various countries that I go into. I said that there are some rules that you have to observe as you work with individuals from various cultural backgrounds, and apparently there are some analytical skills that an international expert should possess. If you come across a viewpoint that is different from yours, you would be better off not criticizing it, but rather finding out why an individual thinks the way they do. Because in any conversation, a person may be not right, and often that is what happens, and you don't want to think that your worldview is the right one. More often than not, you may be the individual who is mistaken, and I'm thinking of any conversation or any job from that angle. I'm certainly not confident that any of the partners or interlocutors are necessarily right. And in any area, even beyond social security, in any problem solving, this stance gives very clear benefits. You talk with people, you offer your views, and you take in their views, and that leads to an interchange of ideas that helps address practical issues. What's important, in my view, is to have tolerance, diplomatic skills, and importantly, to be curious towards what you come across. in the job that you do.
I fully agree with you. As I was working on over my project, I concluded that all the decisions need to be taken when you have no emotions in your head. Even if you don't agree with your colleague, you really have to put emotions aside, exhale, and then take this decision. Otherwise, emotions just get in the way. You have to be diplomatic. It is important.
I have a question to you, Nastya. I know that you do, or rather did, an interesting project about employment of young adults or teenagers. So my question to you, what made you choose that?
You know, it happened last summer. We were fresh after schools and we started to discuss our plans for summer, as it would usually happen, and it turned out that a lot of them want to earn some money, but they don't really know where to go. Well, probably go and work as a promoter or transcriber or dog walker, but you can only just earn money there. But it's, you know, working is not just about getting money. So I thought of a solution to give teenagers an opportunity to make first steps towards a profession and try out a lot of things and take decisions on what to choose more consciously.
I find it very important. Going back to what I said, I believe that for a young individual it's important to understand what track they want to take. And when they have some work experience, that helps them meet themselves first and foremost, because teenagers, they really discover themselves. They want to understand what they are here for, what they want to do in terms of improving the lives of others or their own life, what they want to do to enjoy what they do. The choice of a profession determines what you would do in the next few years, and as such it's very important. And it's equally important that a teenager or a young adult had an opportunity to really get a flavor of the world, to work in a variety of industries. But then, of course, there's this notion of child labor, which, of course, has a bearing on whether a kid of a certain age could do some work but still be engaged in what they have to do at that age, such as studying, to work so that that work didn't influence their studies or their health for that matter. I mentioned that because I've worked in some countries where child labor was brought up by various people when children, for example, had to drop out of school and to go and work in agricultural businesses in the field in very dire conditions. There are some other opportunities that help children engage in projects such as solidarity or promoting the rights of particular groups of people to engage in volunteering activities that has a good impact on the society as well as on the individuals themselves. And in that sense, the project that you did matters a lot, because children get to know the various processes in the society. And I have my next question. It is a challenge to initiate any project, in particular in an area which is not very widespread, which is not awfully popular. As far as I know, to my knowledge, I haven't come across projects like this, where children or teenagers trying to build a platform and to get employed through that platform. I believe that certainly has an impact, and it builds a bridge between kids or teenagers and employers so that they could develop as professionals or individuals and finally understand what it is that they want to do. And my question is this: what were the main stumbling blocks that you came across when you were implementing that project, and what was the easiest thing?
Well, actually, I encountered challenges almost everywhere, but everything was so new and it's so challenging at that it was creating additional impact. It was pretty difficult to find employers. I mean, no problem finding teenage employees, but the employers, totally different thing. But hopefully some changes in the legislation will happen and it would be easier for teenagers to find a job. And as soon as grown-ups will be less wary of the solutions offered by children, will realize that the project has flown and it's a first success. We already mentioned that one important thing is not just getting money for what you do, but also the meaning. Like my peer from India or Russia, how would he or she find a way to work on sustainable goals like starvation and things like that? Where do we start?
I guess a good place to start is where you did, building platforms like that, building projects that you came up with, bringing together enthusiasts of your age, and you don't have to start with trying to change the world or the country, or to improve a whole parts of a national system. But you could start with building a group and trying to change the environment in which you find yourselves. I myself, for one, even if I can influence the world view of any individual, not necessarily a teenager, maybe an adult even, if that is just one individual, if the ideas that I stand for, such as the equality, the eradication of poverty, the promotion of human rights, the promotion of more sustainable social security, now if I can influence even one individual, I would be very happy. Nastya, I had a question about your project, and I wanted to ask what practical results you already have and what results you would like to achieve in the future.
Well, initially we planned to create this project so that school children would be able to try out different jobs and professions where it's interesting, where it works for them, get some feedback from professionals in the areas that they like. And when school children would come to us not just to get first money, but also to gain experience, mentorship, then we would call that we're a success at the first stage, the success that we aspired to get.
I guess what matters here is the established cooperation with corporates that you have been able to build. And I guess you would benefit from engaging with companies who would be interested in offering mentorship. And that has an impact on the choice of future profession, by the way. Often in that age, when professionals of 30 to 40 years of age, when they are already someone in their field, they tend to be willing to share their knowledge. That doesn't happen always, of course, but often such people are willing to share. And I guess this project could be very successful. It's just that you need to find a team of people who would be able to help you, who would be interested in really passing on their knowledge, in offering mentorship to teenagers, to understand what it is that they want to do, whether they want to be an actor or an astronaut or a lawyer. And I do wish you success in that.
Thank you. You know, sometimes actors are asked what role you want to play. So I have a question for you. Do you have a humanitarian goal that is not readily available but achievable?
If you are asking about my goal, It's not a goal, it's rather a wish. I had an opportunity to work in different countries, including the CIS and Asia. At this juncture, I have this idea. I have wanted this for a couple of years now. I would really like to try and work in African countries. I never really had an opportunity to be there. I did do some analysis for them, but as an expert operating from one of the African countries and developing the social security system, this is not something I've ever done before, and I would like to have that experience. Why? Because the level of poverty there and the level of social security development is not that advanced as in our countries. In our region, in the CIS, for example, we have quite developed social security systems. However, we do have some gaps in terms of pension levels, in terms of the level of benefits, the quality of services offered to the vulnerable groups of the population. But in the African countries, the social security systems are all but absent in certain countries. There are just haphazard social security initiatives that do not cover any meaningful group of the population. So my wish is really to work in a country where I could really contribute, apply myself to developing that country. And when you do something and you see the outcome of what you do, you can see that the social security system is really developing and developing fast. That's very rewarding. But there are issues with that, such as availability of financing, for example. Social security might seem like a very obscure term, but it's a very straightforward thing. It does develop on the level of funding in a given country. Whether that will be a challenge, of course. Will there be the good outcome? I'm confident. It's just something that you want to apply yourself to and change things. This is something that I want very much.
Thank you, Artiom, for your valuable and insightful advice, and I do hope that our conversation will help a lot of my peers and other teenagers determine their area in life and where to go. Thank you.